Module 6. Turbulence is a tricky place. This is when the journey may get difficult for you, where some hallmarks of turbulence could include confusion. It could include some physical distress, meaning physical discomfort. It could include perhaps some negative thought patterns. It could include fear. Anything that is taking you out of this sweet space of soaring. And so I really like to think of it as when we're in the airplane and you hit some of those air pockets. You know, you can ride them, but you have to use some techniques to help you navigate them more clearly. So of course, the first thing we're going to talk about is remembering to breathe, tuning back into your breath, and using techniques to help you ground. Now, anyone that's worked with me in my group coaching program, I've taught you the alternate nostril breathing. I think this is a really great technique if you're starting to feel that you're maybe hyperventilating or you're getting a little stressed out. Instead, give yourself a chance to focus on the breath. Honestly, tuning into your breath in medicine space can be one of the most beautiful and profound experiences you can have, where you can really connect to how breath animates our bodies and how it connects us to one another, how we interplay with the plants and the animals and the whole planet. It can be really quite astounding. So allow yourself to play with breath. You can't fuck up your breath. It's important to remember you can't fuck up your breath in medicine space unless for some reason you decide to go underwater and try to breathe underwater. Please don't do that. I don't think you would, by the way, but just be aware. Allow the breath to kind of ground you and bring you back into your present moment. The next thing you might want to do is, again, call that intention back. Why are you doing this? Oh, yes, I'm here to learn about love. It's not about fear. If you're running into turbulence, you can ask the medicine to show you things in a different way, or to be softer, or to help you move out of this fearful place. Sometimes people forget that they've taken medicine. So that's one reason with starting low and slow. But if you can remind yourself that, oh yes, I've taken something and I will return to normal at some point. You're not going to break your brain. And we'll talk about that more in the Q&A section. Another thing you can do is to meet the energy. So sometimes people will have an embodied response in the medicine space. Perhaps you'll start feeling a little shaky, maybe, or you'll start feeling a desire to really be curled inward. And rather than trying to still those things or shut them down, sometimes it's appropriate to amplify it. So if you're feeling shaky, maybe it's time to dance or move. Or if you're feeling like you need to get really fetal, maybe it's appropriate to curl really deeply and then expand. So if your energy that's running through you is telling you you need more movement, you need more breath, you need some stretching, this is not, again, bringing back that idea of surrendering to a lover. I imagine very few of us have surrendered to a lover where we are like on a fainting couch and that's it. And you just lie there and are ravished. There's an engagement, there's an energy exchange. So allow that energy exchange to occur. Be safe, of course. Maybe if you've never done a handstand in your life, this isn't the time to try doing a handstand. But if you need to shimmy really hard, or you want to roll on the floor and get down on the ground with your puppies, it could be something as fun or simple as that. If you get stuck in a loop, which can happen, it's really important to notice what else is here. So what I mean by that is, maybe you're hooked by the thought of, how can I describe this? I haven't looped myself in a really long time because I've developed tools to navigate this, but sometimes people will get stuck in a thought pattern that comes back to a starting point, and then they kind of have to run the thought pattern again. And it can be distressing if you're inside that experience, or if you are with support team that don't know how that works or what happens, that they can maybe get distressed that something's going on. But sometimes it just needs to run its course. And by noticing what else is happening besides the loop can help to shift from the loop. So let's say you're running a thought pattern about work. Let's just say work. You're thinking about that person at work that did that thing, that made that thing happen. And then you're feeling like this, and you just keep going around this spiral of thinking about this situation. Your brain has hooked onto something. But if you can find a way, you're like, I want to get out of this loop. What else am I noticing? Maybe if you've been inward with your eyes closed for a while, it's time to come out and engage externally. Maybe it's time for movement. Maybe it's time to request some support from your support team. That is a really lovely thing to do, is get the support that you need. That's not just you trying to figure out inside your own self, okay? Another important tool that I think is really helpful is if you are having an experience that gets difficult, I really like to invite people to explore the sensation versus the label. So what do I mean by that? I've had more than one client that has this feeling in their chest. Maybe it's they have a feeling that occurs and they immediately identify it as panic. It's the feeling that happens before I have a panic attack. So I would invite you, if I was working with you, to slow down and actually look at what is the sensation of a panic attack. What are you feeling in your body? So perhaps you're feeling the strength of your heart beating. You're feeling a firm heartbeat. Maybe you're feeling a little constricted, like your breath isn't flowing very well. With the medicine, you can also examine these embodied sensations, giving them a shape, giving them a color, being really aware of where their boundaries are in relationship to the rest of you. And honestly, if this occurs for you, this is really rich territory. You can learn so much by just being with the sensation without the label. So if we take this feeling that you're having that you've identified as fear or pre-panic attack, and instead we look at it as just pure sensation and being in inquiry about what it needs. What does it need? Does it need breath? Does it need holding? Does it need a hot water bottle? Does it need a hum or a tone or a sound to vibrate it or change it? Or just, does it just need to be witnessed? So inviting the experience of sensation versus labeling. And of course, always feel free to ask for support. You've approached this journey mindfully. You have ground control that is expecting you. They may need to support you at some point. And there's never a problem with reaching out to your ground control when you've made agreements ahead of time. That's why they're doing this for you. We'll talk more about support work in the next little bit. So, other things about turbulence. Sometimes people talk about this as what's known as a bad trip. And that language is tricky because it's not necessarily it's not a bad trip. It's a challenging experience for sure. It's very different than if you had a bad trip, meaning you were at a festival and you ended up getting arrested. That's a bad trip. But if it's a situation at home where you're struggling, many people that have had a challenging experience will say that they learned so much from it. And through that process of navigating it and coming out the other side, it's much like giving birth. So anyone that's watching that's given birth, you climb a mountain through that work, and it's not easy. And many times you want to give up. So, but there is a reward at the end of this process. So let's find ways to build that success in if you crash into some turbulence.